My dad replaced me with his stepson, so I took my mom's side in the divorce. An 18-year-old boy, and for most of my life, I thought my family was solid. It was just me, my dad 46, and my mom 48. Sure. We had our ups and downs like any family, but we always seemed close, or so I thought. Things started falling apart a couple of years ago when I was 16. My parents' marriage was already under strain, mostly because of financial problems. My mom had lost her job, and the stress of bills piling up turned into constant arguments. At first, they tried to shield me from it, but it wasn't long before every dinner turned into a shouting match. When they announced they were divorcing, I wasn't exactly shocked, but it still hit me hard. My mom moved out almost immediately, and for a while, it was just me and my dad. I tried to keep things normal, but the atmosphere was heavy. It wasn't long before my dad started dating again. Within a year, he remarried. His new wife, Rachel, came with a 17-year-old son named Jason. Jason was the kind of person who lights up a room. He's bubbly, outgoing, and charming. Basically, everything I'm not. When they first moved in, I thought we might actually get along. I tried to bond with him, inviting him to hang out, but it felt like he was always a step ahead. He had this natural ability to draw people in. And before I knew it, my dad was completely enamored with him. At first, it was small things. My dad would rave about Jason's accomplishments at dinner, and suddenly every family outing revolved around him. For my last birthday, my dad got me a cake and a sweater. When Jason's birthday rolled around a couple of months later, they threw him a massive party and surprised him with a car. Not just any car, either a shiny new one. I had never received anything close to that. Not even when I graduated. I tried talking to my dad about how I was feeling, but he brushed it off. He said I was being ridiculous and that I needed to stop being jealous. That word, jealous, stuck with me. Was I jealous? I didn't think so. I just wanted to feel like I still mattered. Around this time, I started spending more weekends at my mom's place. I told her everything. And she was furious on my behalf. She reassured me that it wasn't all in my head and encouraged me to stand up for myself, but it wasn't easy. Rachel had started influencing how things were run at home. She always talked about how blended families should work, but it was clear that her priority was Jason. It felt like I was the odd one out in my own house. Family holidays became unbearable. Jason was always the center of attention while I was more of an afterthought. One Christmas, my dad canceled a vacation we had been planning for years, saying we couldn't afford it. Later, I found out the money had gone to fund Jason's extracurricular activities. It was another slap in the face. Jason, for his part, wasn't exactly innocent. He had a knack for manipulating situations to his advantage. Anytime there was tension, he'd play the victim, making it seem like I was the problem. I started keeping my distance, but that only made things worse. The more I pulled away, the more my dad seemed to cling to him. The breaking point came one evening when I overheard my dad talking to Rachel. He was laughing and said something along the lines of, "I'm just so lucky to finally have the son I always wanted." I can't even describe what it felt like to hear that. I didn't confront him right away. I just went to my room, packed a bag, and called my mom. By the end of the week, I had officially moved in with her. Looking back, I think that was the moment everything changed. It wasn't just about Jason anymore. It was about realizing that my dad didn't see me as a priority. Moving out was my way of taking control, but I knew it was just the beginning of a much bigger battle. Update 1, anyhow. When I moved in with my mom, it felt like stepping into a whole new world. She didn't just welcome me with open arms. She made it clear that her home was now my home. She helped set up my room, even finding some old photos of us to hang on the walls. It was comforting, but there was no time to really settle in. The fallout from my decision hit fast. My dad's reaction came almost immediately. He called me nonstop, leaving voicemails accusing me of being ungrateful. He kept saying things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me." He wasn't interested in understanding why I left. He was focused on making me feel guilty for doing it. Jason wasted no time making his feelings known either. Within days of me moving out, he started posting little digs on social media. One of his posts was a picture of him sitting in the car my dad had bought him with the caption, "Guess I'm the only son now." Another was a group photo from a family dinner I wasn't invited to, captioned, "Family first." It didn't take long for mutual friends to notice, and soon the rumors started flying at school. The split wasn't just at home. Extended family members began taking sides too. Some of them reached out to me saying they understood why I left and even admitted they'd noticed how my dad was treating Jason differently. Others, though, sided with my dad, claiming I was being dramatic and that I should go back home to fix things. It felt like the entire family was being dragged into the mess. As if all that wasn't enough, my mom told me she was reopening the divorce proceedings. Apparently, there were financial disputes that hadn't been fully resolved, and my dad's recent spending, especially on Jason, was raising red flags. My mom wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of, so she decided to fight for some of the assets my dad had claimed. Meanwhile, my dad made one attempt after another to get me to come back. He sent me long messages about how much he missed me and how he wanted things to go back to the way they were, but he never addressed the real issues. It was always about how I was hurting his feelings, not about the favoritism or the way he'd prioritized Jason over me. My mom suggested I try therapy to process everything, and, honestly, it was a good idea. Talking to someone neutral helped me untangle a lot of what I was feeling, but it also gave me the confidence to start standing up for myself. I stopped answering my dad's guilt-tripping messages. And when he brought up Jason, I shut the conversation down. Jason wasn't giving up his games though. At school, he started spreading stories about how I'd abandoned our blended family because I couldn't handle sharing attention. Mutual friends were getting caught in the middle, and it felt like every hallway I walked down was filled with whispers. But by then, I was starting to realize that his manipulation only worked if I let it. So I stopped engaging, which seemed to frustrate him even more. The legal proceedings brought another layer of drama. My mom's lawyer wanted my perspective on what had been happening at home. I didn't hold back. I talked about the canceled vacation, the car, and even the overheard conversation where my dad had called Jason the son he'd always wanted. It wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. During all this, my dad's obsession with Jason became even more obvious. He started posting pictures online with captions like, "So proud of my handsome boy, and couldn't ask for a better son." He never mentioned me. Not once. It hurt. But it also validated my decision to leave. He wasn't just favoring Jason. He was erasing me. My mom was my rock through all of it. She kept reminding me that I deserved better and that none of this was my fault. She also encouraged me to set boundaries with my dad, which turned out to be one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. The breaking point came when my dad confronted me in public. He showed up outside my school demanding to talk. He was loud enough to draw a crowd, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. He kept asking why I was doing this to him, but I didn't take the bait. I calmly told him that I'd be happy to talk when he could respect my boundaries and left it at that. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do. After that, I stopped engaging with him entirely. I told him I wouldn't respond to any messages unless they were respectful. It was a tough stance to take, but it was the only way to protect my peace. My mom supported me every step of the way. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to regain control of my life. Update 2. Not long after I set boundaries with my dad, he stopped reaching out altogether. At first, I thought it was his way of giving me space, but it quickly became clear that he was ignoring me on purpose. He didn't even respond to my polite messages about logistics, like picking up the rest of my things from the house. It was a total shutdown, as if I'd been erased from his life. His wife, Rachel, wasn't as quiet. She sent me an email that was dripping with passive aggression. She wrote about how my decision to leave had torn the family apart and how I needed to grow up and understand the sacrifices my dad had made for me. The entire email was one big guilt trip. My mom read it before I did and advised me not to reply, so I didn't. Meanwhile, Jason was having a field day. He doubled down on the rumors at school, telling anyone who'd listen that I had left because I couldn't handle sharing attention. Some people believed him, but most didn't. My closest friends stuck by me, and a few even started calling him out for his behavior. That didn't stop him though. He seemed to enjoy the drama and the attention it brought him. While all of this was happening, my mom's legal team was digging deeper into my dad and Rachel's finances. They discovered some pretty shady stuff, like how my dad had used marital assets to cover Jason's car payments and fund Rachel's failing business. There were even discrepancies in how the child support money was being spent. My mom was furious, but instead of reacting impulsively, she let her lawyer handle it. My dad, on the other hand, decided to take his grievances to social media. He posted a long emotional status about how hard it was to be a dad and how ungrateful children can be. He didn't name me directly, but anyone who knew our situation could tell he was talking about me. Some of his friends commented things like, "Stay strong, Papa, and kids don't understand what we go through for them." I saw the post and rolled my eyes. It was just another way for him to play the victim. Despite all the drama, my friends were my rock. They kept reminding me to focus on myself and not let my dad or Jason's antics get to me. Their support, along with my mom's encouragement, made a huge difference. I also started therapy, which helped me understand that my dad's actions were more about his own insecurities than anything I'd done. It wasn't an excuse, but it gave me some clarity. Then came Jason's birthday. My dad threw him a massive party, like, over-the-top massive. There was a DJ, catered food, and a professional photographer. Seeing the pictures online made me cringe. It was hard not to compare it to my last birthday, which had been a quiet dinner with just my dad and Rachel. The blatant favoritism was impossible to ignore. During one of our late-night talks, my mom opened up about her marriage to my dad. She told me about how he'd always needed validation and how his insecurities often led him to overcompensate in ways that hurt the people around him. Hearing her perspective didn't excuse what he'd done, but it helped me understand him a little better. At school, Jason's mask started to slip. During a conversation with some mutual acquaintances, he let it slip that he enjoyed being the favorite because it gave him power in the family. Someone recorded it, and the clip made its way around. It didn't completely turn people against him, but it definitely made him look bad. Around this time, I got a part-time job at a local bookstore. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me a sense of independence I hadn't felt in a long time. Earning my own money felt empowering, and it kept me busy enough to avoid dwelling on the family drama. The extended family wasn't staying quiet either. One of my uncles who had been mostly neutral up to this point finally confronted my dad. He told him he needed to take a hard look at how he was treating me. My dad didn't take it well. According to my uncle, he doubled down insisting that I was the problem. My dad's desperation hit a new low when he tried to bribe me with expensive gifts. He sent a package to my mom's house with a designer watch and a note saying he missed me. I sent the package back unopened. My mom told me she was proud of me for standing my ground. The legal case was the tipping point. My mom's lawyer presented the evidence of financial misuse and the court ruled in my mom's favor. She got more control over the remaining assets and my dad was ordered to pay back some of the money he had misused. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a step in the right direction. Through it all, I stayed firm in my boundaries. My dad's attempts to manipulate or guilt me didn't work anymore. I wasn't looking for his approval or trying to change his mind. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally free to focus on myself and my future. Update 3. The legal battle finally wrapped up and my mom came out on top. The court sided with her, granting her more financial security and partial custody rights over the remaining shared assets. It was a huge relief for both of us. The ruling exposed how my dad had misused funds to pay for Jason's car, extracurricular, and even Rachel's mounting debts. The details weren't pretty, but they were necessary to prove my mom's case. My dad, of course, didn't take it well. He lashed out, accusing me of helping my mom to humiliate him. He sent a long angry email claiming I had destroyed his reputation and torn apart the family. There wasn't much I could say to that. It felt like he was more upset about being caught than about the impact of his actions. The court documents also made it clear how much of his spending had been directed toward Jason. Seeing it laid out in black and white made me feel a mix of vindication and sadness. It wasn't just about the car or the party. It was about years of choices that showed where his priorities truly lay. Some of my extended family members couldn't ignore it anymore, but others still insisted I was the one in the wrong. The split within the family became more obvious with uncles and cousins picking sides. Jason's popularity took a hit too. Friends and even some family members started seeing through his manipulative behavior. The video clip of him bragging about being the favorite was still circulating, and the court revelations only added fuel to the fire. People who once saw him as charming were now keeping their distance. He didn't handle it well and it started to show. One of my uncles who had stayed neutral during most of the drama reached out to me. He shared his own stories about my dad's favoritism and how it had affected their relationship growing up. Hearing his perspective made me realize that this wasn't just about me. My dad's patterns had been hurting people long before Jason and I were in the picture. With my mom's constant encouragement and the support of my friends, I started to rebuild. My network felt stronger than ever. I leaned on my friends when things got tough, and they were always there to remind me that I was making the right choices for myself. I also kept busy with work at the bookstore and picked up some new hobbies like painting. Therapy helped too. Slowly but surely, I began to let go of the guilt I've been carrying since I left my dad's house. Things weren't quiet on his end though. He sent me an email with an ultimatum: apologize and move back home, or he'd write me out of his life. It was his final play to regain control, but it backfired. I didn't respond, choosing instead to focus on maintaining my boundaries. My mom was proud of me for standing firm, and that was all the validation I needed. Jason tried to stir up drama at school, cornering me in the hallway one day to accuse me of ruining their family. He was loud enough to draw attention, but instead of making me look bad, his meltdown backfired. A couple of classmates even stepped in to defend me, telling him to leave me alone. Watching him storm off was surreal. He was finally starting to face the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Rachel's financial troubles were catching up to her. Her business was failing, and creditors were closing in. My dad's household was under a lot of strain, but I didn't feel sorry for them. They had made their choices, and now they were facing the fallout. My mom kept me grounded through it all. She reminded me that I had a bright future ahead and encouraged me to focus on my education and goals rather than getting dragged back into the drama. Her unwavering support gave me the confidence to take on leadership roles at school and at work. I started running a book club at the store and joined the student council. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was thriving. When my birthday rolled around, my mom and my friends threw me a quiet celebration. It was small, just a homemade cake, a few thoughtful gifts, and lots of laughter, but it meant everything to me. Sitting there with the people who truly cared about me, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. I wasn't the same person who had packed a bag and left my dad's house in tears. I was stronger, more independent, and finally at peace with my decision. The road ahead still felt uncertain, But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I knew I had the support I needed to keep moving forward, and that was enough. Update 4. A few weeks after my birthday, I got an unexpected email from my dad. He invited me to a family dinner saying he wanted to make amends. The wording was vague, but the invitation caught me off guard. My mom was immediately skeptical. She warned me to be careful, suspecting there might be ulterior motives behind his sudden change of heart. I agreed, but I figured I should go, if nothing else, to see if he was serious about repairing things. The dinner was at their house, the same one I had left months earlier. Walking in, it felt strange to see how little had changed. Jason was already there, perched at the table with a smug smile like he was waiting for the show to begin. Rachel greeted me stiffly, and my dad seemed overly cheerful, almost forced. The tension was palpable from the start. We sat down, and the conversation quickly took a turn. My dad started talking about how much he missed having me around and how hard it had been for him since I moved out. Rachel chimed in with a speech about the importance of family and how I needed to let go of the past for the sake of everyone's happiness. It was clear they were trying to guilt-trip me, and Jason was sitting there soaking it all in. When the conversation shifted to Jason, my dad couldn't stop praising him. He talked about Jason's school achievements, his upcoming plans, and even hinted that they were considering another special surprise for him. It felt like a replay of everything that had driven me away in the first place. I decided to cut through the noise and calmly laid out my boundaries. I told them I wasn't there to argue, but I wouldn't tolerate manipulation or favoritism anymore. My dad looked taken aback and Jason's smug expression faded. He interrupted, accusing me of trying to steal my dad's affection and ruining their family dynamic. His outburst was loud enough to echo through the house. Rachel tried to jump in, lecturing me about family values and the importance of forgiving and forgetting. I stayed calm and pointed out that she wasn't exactly the best example given the financial mess she had contributed to during the divorce. That shut her up quickly. My dad tried to smooth things over by offering what I could only describe as a half-hearted apology. He said he was sorry if I felt neglected but refused to acknowledge Jason's role in any of it. It was like he couldn't even see what had been happening right in front of him. I decided I'd had enough. I stood up and told them I was leaving. My dad started to protest, but I wasn't going to sit there and let them turn this dinner into another circus. I left without looking back, feeling more certain than ever that I'd made the right choice to move out. The aftermath was immediate. My dad bombarded me with angry messages, blaming me for the tension and accusing me of being ungrateful yet again. I didn't reply. A few days later, I started hearing from mutual acquaintances about what had gone down. Apparently, Jason's meltdown at the dinner had spread through our school and community. People were finally starting to see him for who he really was, and the backlash was not pretty. Surprisingly, the fallout brought me closer to some of my cousins. A few reached out, sharing their own experiences of feeling sidelined by my dad and Jason. Hearing their stories made me realize I wasn't as alone as I thought. We started talking more, and it felt good to have that kind of support from family members who understood where I was coming from. My friends and mom were also there for me as they always had been. They reminded me how proud they were of me for standing up for myself even when it wasn't easy. Their encouragement helped me shake off the negativity and refocus on the things that truly mattered. My dad's next move was to scrub me from his social media. He removed every picture, every mention of me like I didn't exist. It stung, but it also made it clear that he wasn't ready to change. He was still clinging to his version of events where I was the villain and Jason was the golden child. My mom, on the other hand, made a point to remind me how far I'd come. She told me how proud she was of my growth and resilience, and how she knew I had a bright future ahead of me. Her words stuck with me, giving me the strength to keep moving forward. That dinner marked a turning point for me. I realized I didn't need my dad's approval to feel whole. I had my mom, my friends, and now a few cousins who had my back. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly independent. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. And I knew that no matter what came next, I'd be ready. Update 5. After the chaotic dinner, my dad went completely silent. No calls, no emails, nothing. It was almost eerie. For the first time in months, there wasn't a single message blaming me for something or trying to guilt me into coming back. It felt like he had given up, but the calm was unsettling. Jason's life wasn't going much better. His manipulative nature had finally caught up with him. Friends at school stopped talking to him, and even some of his biggest supporters among the extended family distanced themselves. The stories about his behavior at the dinner had spread and his reputation was in shambles. For someone who thrived on attention, the isolation must have been unbearable, but I wasn't going to let him drag me back into his drama. Rachel's financial troubles reached their peak. Her debts finally caught up with her, and she was slapped with a lawsuit from one of her creditors. The case caused a huge strain on their household, and the lavish lifestyle they'd been trying to maintain started to crumble. Jason's special surprises and over-the-top birthday celebrations were gone. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, things were tense in their house, but I wasn't interested in getting involved. Around the same time, my mom started dating someone new. His name was Carl, and he was genuinely kind. He didn't try to overstep or act like a replacement dad, but he was always supportive and encouraging. He joined us for dinner sometimes and made an effort to get to know me without prying into the drama. It was a nice change, and it was clear my mom was happy. In therapy, I reached a point where I could finally let go of the resentment I'd been holding on to toward my dad. Forgiveness didn't mean I was ready to reconcile, but it freed me from the constant weight of anger. I realized I couldn't change him or make him see things my way, but I could move forward without letting his actions define me. School became my main focus, and the effort paid off. I earned a scholarship for academic excellence and received recognition from my teachers for some of my projects. It felt good to see my hard work paying off. My mom was over the moon, and Carl baked me a cake to celebrate. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building something positive for my future. Then out of nowhere, I got a call from my uncle. My dad had experienced a minor health scare and was in the hospital. It wasn't serious, but it was enough to shake him. My uncle thought I should visit, and after some hesitation, I decided to go. Walking into his hospital room was awkward. He looked surprised to see me but didn't say much. I sat down and we had a brief polite conversation about his condition and how he was feeling. It wasn't a heartwarming reunion, but it wasn't hostile either. Jason wasn't there, which didn't surprise me. From what I'd heard, he'd grown increasingly bitter about my absence and had started pulling away from everyone. When I visited the house later to drop off some things for my dad, Jason barely acknowledged me. He seemed cold and distant, like he couldn't decide whether to ignore me or start a fight. I wasn't interested in either option. Before leaving the hospital, my dad and I had a candid conversation. I told him that I cared about him, but for any real relationship to work, things would have to change. I was clear about what I needed: respect, boundaries, and no more favoritism. He nodded along and even admitted he'd made mistakes, but he wasn't ready to take full accountability. It felt like he was trying, but not enough to bridge the gap between us. When I told my mom about the conversation, she gave me some advice that stuck with me. She reminded me that not all relationships could be repaired, and that was okay. What mattered was that I had tried. I couldn't control whether my dad changed, but I could control how I moved forward. A few months later, I moved out for college. Packing up my things and saying goodbye to my mom and Carl was bittersweet, but I was excited for the fresh start. As I settled into my dorm and began classes, I realized how far I'd come. The toxic environment I'd grown up in no longer had a hold on me. I was free to focus on my future and the life I wanted to build. Looking back, the experience taught me the value of self-respect and boundaries. It wasn't easy to stand up for myself, but it was worth it. To anyone in a similar situation, my advice is simple. Prioritize yourself. You can't change other people, but you can choose to protect your own peace. Walking away isn't always easy, but sometimes it's the only way to truly move forward.